Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the West Coast Preps podcast. I am Chris Jackson, joined here again by high school sports guru Noah Glosson. Plenty of great games we went to over the weekend. I know you all heard us on our Twitter space last podcast on Friday evening. Now we're back and looking ahead to this week. But first, before we do, I know the first question I've been asked, we want to ask too, is the Bay Valley Athletic League officially back on the mat?
I think it's a big question. Definitely, we have to ask ourselves with all the talent they got. We saw Pittsburgh roll over Bethel. We saw Heritage, Devin Rivers, just the Fresno State commit just rolled over Dublin with 3 touchdowns. I think this league is back so far. Antioch just absolutely erupted over Monte Vista. Charles Brown Jr. put up a performance for the ages with 289 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. I think it's safe to say this league is back. Also to mention, Liberty won their game 56-0. The Bay Valley Athletic League is back for sure.
Yes, it is. And the headliner of it, we all know Pittsburgh's been great for years, the class of East County for a long time. What they did against Bethel, no surprise with the talent Pitt's got, but Antioch, kind of head coaching debuts going there. Johnny Millard, really great defensive coach too. He showed that at Foothill these last couple of years, winning the league titles, going to an NCS championship. But Antioch putting up 57 points in Brett Dudley's first game. But how about Charles Brown Jr., the transfer from Pitt, first game of his senior year, first game at Antioch, 30 carries, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns, also had a pick. He said he was hoping to get maybe 5 touchdowns and 300 yards, but they did get 50-plus points and they won the game. And that's just Charles Brown Jr. He's not the only guy in that backfield that's standing out there. You got the junior, Elijah Stingley. He had 110 yards and a touchdown on 20 carries. Ran the ball over 50 times as a team in this game and just gassed the Mustangs for 57 points on the road. Antioch made, perhaps you could say, the biggest statement in the Bay Area going into week 2.
Absolutely. Antioch, we know Brett Dudley, they have a good tradition there. Brett Dudley has been the offensive coordinator for some time. He coached Najee Harris and many other great backs. We know they have a good lineage of running backs out there. Elijah Stingley really proved that he can step it up, and he will be the lead back next year. Charles Brown Jr., he's fit great ever since he transferred to Pitt. And I really think that Brett Dudley makes a good fit as the head coach here. They made it to the D1 playoffs last year, NCS. They lost in the first round at Clayton Valley, but I think they made a statement here that they are not to be taken lightly at all. And it's honestly no surprise that they really just rolled over Monte Vista in such a fashion, given how explosive that offense is. Charles Brown Jr., first team All Bay Area, first team All BVAL. He's just unbelievable.
Yeah, what does this mean for Antioch going into week 2, but also the rest of this season?
I think what it means is that they're going to be a contender for the number 2 spot. I know Pittsburgh, like I've said before, from a raw talent perspective, they're the best in the Bay Area and maybe even NorCal, given all the commits they have or on all the Division I prospects. But I think this league showing, this non-league showing, is going to be impressive too. You got Vintage. You go over to Rockland, who is you host Rockland and Cal. And Marin Catholic, that one's is going to be a good one on the 23rd of September. And then it's league play, and they kind of close it out on the road at home against Pittsburgh. That's going to be a fun one to watch on November 4th. That's going to be a fireworks show.
Yeah, there's so many great games in that league this year. I think that league slate's going to be awesome. That non-league slate, so you look ahead to some of these games this week. Heritage goes to Granada. They're the leader in the game of the week voting right now. Deer Valley plays at St. Mary's Berkeley on Saturday afternoon. Antioch's got Vintage. Liberty goes out to Los Gatos. Pitt's playing in the Honor Bowl in San Diego against Liberty from Nevada. Freedom travels to El Cerrito. And a lot of these BVAL teams, yes, Deer Valley lost. First game under a new head coach, playing a Northgate team that won its league last year, though. Freedom playing Marin Catholic. Freedom loses that game, but Marin Catholic coming off a state title. A lot of pieces back. Still showed promise, though. Samaje Featherstone, a D1 prospect, 5 catches, 106 yards, a touchdown. Herschel Turner Jr. is only a junior. He's got 18 carries, 90 yards, and 3 touchdowns in that game. Then just going through the rest of that league. Pittsburgh, everybody stood out. They need to get a lot of snaps to put up 59 points. Meanwhile, Liberty 56, Enoch's nothing. Nate Bell 10 of 13, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, but another 113 rushing yards and a touchdown. Meanwhile, sophomore Jamar Searcy had 4 carries for 85 yards. And Deuce Carr, a really good cornerback, rated the 2-star right now, had 3 catches for 112 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think the BVAL coaches they got, the players they've got this year, is going to move up into one of those top leagues again, I think, in the Bay Area from top to bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Liberty and Antioch are really going to be fighting for that number 2 spot. We saw what Nate Bell does, his athleticism. He's the hard worker in the weight room. He's able to extend plays, escape the pocket well. He had over 363 all-purpose yards and 4 touchdowns. Liberty, with that culture, they've had that tradition. Ryan Partridge, Monroe State title. Now he's the receivers coach at UMass Amherst. I think with this tradition, they can definitely be a good playoff contender. I know they were kind of developing last season, but Mike Cable, I think, is heading in the right direction with this team.
Yeah, last year you had a lot of youth next to Nate Bell. It's tough when you've got a 3-month off season. Now they had a full one with the new head coach. They're looking really good. So is that whole league. But also, any other takeaways? You've got any storylines you're looking forward to after week 1 going into week 2 that we need to talk about?
Yeah, I think the big one is the national televised game. Sarah and De La Salle. Sarah just went on the road to an intimidating atmosphere and environment in Folsom, and they won 17-12. Guys were dropping like flies. Danny Neo got hurt, and so many others. But Patrick Walsh, his grittiness in crunch time, that is impressive. That's some of the best coaching he's had his entire career, and that says a lot about him. In terms of Bay Area football history, he's one of the best head coaches there will ever be. His grittiness, his genius coaching, Sarah's fortitude, it says it all about how good of a program Sarah is, and they deserve to win that game. When it came down to the final minutes, they were prepared. That was a tough game, but Patrick Walsh proved once again why he's an amazing coach, and that was one of the gutsiest performances he's ever put up.
Yeah, for him to adapt like he does, right? He's just shown it last year. I know he mentioned on Friday night, just losing to Salma Hassan early last year. They still go to a state championship, the open division, nonetheless, right? The way they get the nod over all these other powers, like a Folsom and De La Salle, says a lot. They beat St. Francis still with Hassan gone. What he's done in the offense he ran on Friday night in Folsom, tough trip up there, right? Especially from San Mateo. It's tough enough to make it from part to the East Bay, from a Livermore Pleasant. You got to make that from San Mateo. That's a long trip, especially traffic, everything else. His coaching style, what Greg said, that statement of the weekend, like you just mentioned, was maybe the best coaching performance of his career. Running the Clayton Valley type offense, getting that gritty one. Alex Atkins gets a big time fumble recovery in the end zone there, seal that game 17-12. They had a safety there at the end, a great time management decision there too. Really only gave up 10 points. That safety was just one of those last second things to not give Folsom a chance. That's going to be a good one though on ESPNU this weekend. What are you looking forward to when De La Salle hosts Saturday, 8 p.m. Friday?
It's really going to be the head coaches. I believe Patrick Walsh is from De La Salle. He coached there. I'm not quite sure, but he's returning there for the first time in 6 years. Him and Justin Allenbaugh are 2 very well-minded coaches, football savants. It's really going to be a coaching matchup, especially what we just saw last week, how De La Salle runs its sphere effectively against that tough Sarah defense, how Sarah operates in the pass, the rush. Injuries are going to be a key part. We saw, and even I saw in last week's my game, a lot of injuries in that game. I saw like people were dropping like flies, not as much as the Folsom game, but quite effectively. So that game is going to be really just solidify who's the best team in NorCal. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, but early week 2 matchup could be the game that decides NorCal Open Division in those stakes. Obviously, you still got to play playoffs. A lot can happen in the CCS, NCS. De La Salle still got to play Folsom later this season. A lot can change still. But a big matchup that's going to determine those stakes. That's going to be good. The line play with Derek Thompson, Cooper Power, Sarah's got Ryan Silver, and all those guys. Both teams have great tight ends. Seamus Martin's got over 10 offers. You got Cooper Flanagan going to Notre Dame from De La Salle. There's a lot to like. But some other stories I'd love to go over too is just saw him this weekend. I think he's the biggest sleeper prospect in the Bay Area, maybe Northern California. Just bumped up his rating this week with Catapult too. But Nate Carpe Brody, a senior running back, 200 yards, just 10 carries. He was only maybe 70% healthy. He was banged up going into this one. Clocked in at 21.23 miles per hour in a Catapult wearable vest. The fastest time we've recorded in NorCal this year. Get on him. He can play Division I football, FCS, FBS, whatever you want. That's the one guy. Another one too we have to talk about. Freshman quarterback at Reardon, Michael Mitchell Jr. His debut, his first ever varsity game was his also first ever high school start. Plays a really good Granada team. He completed 15 of 21 passes in this one, 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. Reardon put over 30 points up on the board against Granada. He's got some really talented guys on defense, a well-coached defense there too, with Fabian Franco running that defensive unit. What Michael Mitchell did shows you national prospect all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of the best in the class of 26. Granada and Reardon, we've talked about before, they're probably two of the best improved teams in the Bay Area. It did look like Granada did keep it close early, but then they just ran away. Reardon ran away with it. Coach Adir Ravapati, terrific-minded coach, helped lead Menlo Atherton to a state title. This is a well-coached unit. They made some mistakes, but it's only week one. No team is perfect in week one, especially not with a freshman leading the way. So we're going to see a lot of Reardon, and I think their ceiling is top 3 team in the WCAL, honestly.
I think so too. What they just showed, they've got to be up there with the Sarahs of St. Francis. I know the Bellarmine, we'll get into that matchup in a second. What Jerion Dickey did against Bellarmine, down 20 points. Dickey, all of a sudden, he and that offensive Menlo Atherton put up 48 points, won that game by 14. He going down 20 to winning by 14. That's a 34 points win in that game after going down big. Is Jerion Dickey the best receiver in America? I think that might just be the perfect question to ask at this point.
Maybe even not. Maybe one of the best players in America. At this point, he's that good. I think he's a number 2 on 2 in the sports, but what he's got, obviously, his athleticism. You know, we saw that tough catch he made going one-on-one versus the corner in that cover matchup. It was really impressive. It just shows how much of an athletic freak he is and how amazing explosive he can change a team that instantly. He took a team that wasn't even originally in the top 25 and moved them up 20 spots. That's the Jerion Dickey effect right there.
Yeah, he wasn't on the roster yet. We didn't have them ranked because of what they lost. We know what they were capable of, but just need to see it to believe it with new guys stepping up, right? It's just one of those things you got to see. Then he comes in, they move to 16. Now they're a top 5 team in the Bay Area. Look at that change within a 2-week span as the program. Billy Johnson, though, was a quarterback. Showed up big time. So did a lot of the other players. That's a big time one. But speaking of big time receivers, how about Acalanes? I know we'll have you kind of speak about Acalanes. You know the way that, I guess, that camaraderie, that leadership, togetherness, brotherhood is like. They're just growing up, everybody in Lafayette, Moraga, that area, growing up playing baseball, basketball, football, whatever it is, together for 10 plus years. What their receivers did, Paul Keener over 100 yards. Didn't drop a pass. I know that was kind of the biggest thing he wanted to work on. No drops on this game. Trevor Rogers, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. He made some tough catches down the sideline. He's a big-time receiver. Track guys, D1 offers in football from UMass. The Ryan Partridge connection again, right? I think these are 2 guys that can and will play Power 5 football.
No, absolutely. They're only juniors, and those offers are definitely not the last. There's many more to come. Trevor Rogers, good size, good athleticism, quick. With the track, what happened in track with Ethan Torres too, he had a pass broken up and an interception. Same with Trevor Rogers, and Kyle Wowski does look like a Division I football player. With that speed they've got, they're a dangerous team. They held San Marin to 14 points. I know they lost their star running back, James Green, at Fresno State. Their quarterback moved over to Marin Catholic, but overall, this is still a very good team that are the defending state champs for a reason. And Acalanes put up a gutsy performance against them, especially on defense, honestly.
That was the guys they have on both sides of the ball. I really like what their quarterbacks showed too. It's not easy to come in when Brady Hutchinson was there 2 years ago, then Luke Sousa, but Sully Bailey showed some promise in the first half. Jake Pacelli made a lot of big plays that second half. what they did. Ellis Berger is a D1 running back as well. I'm going to say that right now. That defense, though, Jack Giorgiani, a junior linebacker. I love this junior class of Oklahoma. 9 tackles. Gavin Bender, cornerback, all over the field making tackles. Ethan Torres, lockdown corner, made some big plays there too. Had an interception there. Trevor Rogers also had an interception in that game too. So I like what Akalani's brings on both sides of the football and a very well coached unit.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have never doubt Floyd Burnside run offense, that air attack is potent to any team. You have 2 deep threats in Rogers and Keener, and Ethan Torres should be mentioned up there, and all the promise they have. And I think this team can go far. And this week's matchup against O'Dowd's really going to show what they've done.
Yes, it is. I like what they've got going. Kyle Belowski too. Let's not sleep on that guy. Safety this year, moving to the back end of that defense. He's got the on promise there too. So I like what Akalani's is going to bring to the table. And now speaking of their game this weekend, let's get into our game predictions too. Akalani's a Bishop O'Dowd. How does this one go in week 2?
I think Akalani's takes the advantage. If they can, work on picking apart that O'Dowd secondary, they do have some decent corners, but I think if they can get the upper hand on that, they win easily. O'Dowd's kind of young, but they've got promise too. I think O'Dowd's not going to go down without a fight.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Akalani just has too much right now. O'Dowd will get there. They will, but it's tough week 3. You're playing Akalani's coming in with a lot of firepower, a lot of momentum. I think Akalani's one's big in this one at O'Dowd. The next one, the nationally televised football game, De La Salle, Sarah.
I think De La Salle wins. It's their, they usually they have this experience. They played one of the first ever nationally televised games against Long Beach Poly back in the day. But I think De La Salle wins this one, especially with the view they got going. I like Carson Suisui. He's a really good quarterback, very athletic, can also play in the slot. He's got 8 offers as an athlete, and that line is just incredible with Powers, Thompson, and Cooper Flanagan. And Charles Grin in the backfield. That's just going to be a tough matchup for even Patrick Walsh to take on.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is De La Salle's year. I love what they have. Next year, ask me that same question, and let's see. Right now, though, I'm with you. I'm on De La. I think this game is going to be close, though. They're going to show what NorCal football's about on the national stage. I just love De La Salle senior class. I love what they've got on the line, both sides. I think this is De La Salle's time to take control of NorCal again after what was deemed, I guess, a down year there, which is a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah, especially when you have a culture like De La Salle. But on to the next one. We got an interesting one, a rematch. Aptos and Campolindo. Campolindo making the long trip down to Santa Cruz, take on Aptos, a team that beat them 48-0 last year on their home field. They want revenge. Aptos, it's a really tricky matchup. We talked about this in the space with Ethan. The way they run that wing tee is really intricate, and Campolindo needs to focus on countering that if they want to have a chance to get revenge as from last year's loss.
Yes, they do. I think Campolindo's got it. I like their senior leadership. Morel Catholic, I know they had a down year last year with that new coach, Keith Minor. We spoke about on Friday, too. He's a head coach, won a lot of NSNL. I think he's going to bring Morel Catholic back up like they've been used to a few years ago. They had a few guys now playing D1 football, Colorado, Cal, you name it. Campolindo, though, Dash Weaver, Robbie Mascheroni. I like the running backs. Brendan Comerford. I like Robbie Horst. He's just a tough guy you can really count on. Charlie Murrin had a really big game last week, too. I think Campolindo, I guess, gets that revenge is the way to put it. And they're going to show that Campolindo football is once again a favorite.
Yeah. And the 8-3-1 is not to be taken lightly either. We saw what Salinas did to Clayton Valley, with Isaiah Hunter, Adam Schaefer. That's a great wide receiver and quarterback connection. They have a Cal commit, Hunter. But them and the 8-3-1 and the 8-3-1 with Aptos, that team is really good. They hung around St. Francis last year in the Open Division quarterfinals. It was the first round. They were the 8 seed until Southern St. Francis kind of blew them out at the end. They were close. They were hanging by. They had them cornered at one point. So I think Aptos is a really tough team, and you definitely should not take that team lightly at all.
Yep, they're good. They're a well-coached team. They showed it last year as well. I think Campolindo's got too much, though, to win this. And now in Oakland, McClymon's a season opener playing Bellarmine. Bellarmine is going to want to get back on track. That was a tough loss last week. You got to think they're going to respond tough, but how does this one go in your eyes?
I I think Bellarmine wants redemption from last week, but McClymon's is also really good. I think it's a 6-7 matchup. It's going to be really close. I honestly think McClymon's has the slight edge though with the way they're coached with Michael Peters. They have Javion Thomas, who is a jet. Tajir Golden's a good athlete. They've got the athletes there, and I think they can definitely take this game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I believe McClymonds wins this one. They did lose some guys, but what has Coach Peters always done? I have the utmost respect for him. So do I for Bellarmine staff. Just McClymonds week one at home. I think they get the job done. Javion Thomas is a stud. They've got great line playing both sides of the ball too. I like Bellarmine. I like what they got. The record's going to be deceiving. With this predictions for both of us, Bellarmine's going to be 0-2, but don't forget who they played: Menlo Atherton, McClymonds. But I do think this is a game that gets decided by a field goal in Oakland. And then the next one, Granada Heritage, the leader in the game of the week voting. Heritage, a big one last week. Great class there. You got a sophomore quarterback that showed out too against Granada, coming off a tough loss, but a lot of excitement building out there in Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. Granada, they have some promise. They kind of struggled a little bit last week with against Reardon, but Reardon's just a well-coached team, very tough. I know Quinn Boyd had some ups and downs, but I'm excited to see where this matchup goes. We know Heritage Devon Rivers had 4 touchdowns, over 200 yards rushing, and Jeremiah Ruffin 4 catches, 68 yards, a touchdown. They've got a lot of promise. Heritage is that good of a team. They can definitely take on Liberty this year. As for Granada, Kikoa Barcinas, Christian Klauser, Quinn Boyd, we know he won an MVP award at Notre Dame camp. So they've got athletes, and I see Granada definitely competing for the BVAL Valley spot.
I'm with you too. I just like Heritage too much. The team they've got this year, they're in year 3 with their coaching staff. They've got the culture really built there now. And Devon Rivers, I'm not going to pick against that kid. I can't pick against him and Jeremiah Ruffin. There's no perfect way to cover those guys. I know Granada's going to be mad again. I picked against them last week. They motivate you guys again. Heritage wins this game on the road. Heritage is going to be an impressive 2-0, beating 2 BVAL Valley teams. Speaking of Salinas, playing Valley Christian's first game without Jerry on Dickey, a tough one. Lost to Wilcox, who went to a state championship last year. But it's Valley Christian Salinas.
I got to go with Salinas, honestly, with was Isaiah Hunter, Adam Schaefer, that connection again. How well coached they are down in Salinas. They've got athletes out there and in Salinas, and I think they're going to win. They also, I believe, have an Idaho commit. Hunter's a Cal commit. I think this team, Salinas, goes 2-0.
I am with you on that. I think Salinas gets a big time win there over Valley Christian. Starts off the perfect record against some big teams. And the team they just beat, Clayton Valley, looking for its first win of the season, won back-to-back league titles, facing Del Oro in another big-time non-league matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Del Oro, I believe they're out from Modesto. Central Valley, it's tough football. But Clayton Valley, the way, if they're able to run those counters well, I know you got some new guys. You have Richard McKay. If he lines up correctly and they run the counters well, then they can definitely win and control the game. They're pretty much unstoppable at that point. I do think they get some revenge and win that game.
Yeah, Clayton Valley's going to get this win. I have no concerns about them going forward. Salinas is a really great team. They lost to Clayton Valley is going to be a contender by the end, and they'll show they're a contender this weekend. The game you're going to, El Cerrito, coming off a big win over Amador Valley, held them to 3 points, hosting Freedom on Friday evening.
I got to say, El Cerrito wins that. Warren Smith doesn't give an inch. He's tough. He's athletic. We know El Cerrito's had some great athletes over the years. Robert Freeman graduated last year. Antonio Hines was a fantastic running back. And I know Freedom's got Samaje Featherstone, Herschel Turner, and Jacob Wasso, yes, sit some games, but they've got promise. And once week 5 comes around, I think they'll definitely build up that new identity and they'll get wins. But I think at this point, El Cerrito just has that proven culture. They have a good head coach and they're going to win this.
Here's what's going to help Freedom going forward. this tough non-league schedule always helps you out. When you play tough teams, it only makes you better. Playing Marin Catholic, El Cerrito back-to-back weeks to start, it's even give them credit. They are not backing down from anybody. I just like El Cerrito too much. El Cerrito is going to win this game. But that matchup on the outside, Warren Smith, that El Cerrito secondary against these athletes Freedom has, is going to be a fun one to watch. And I'm sure there's going to be some fun videos from Twitter on that game. Now, how about Los Gatos playing Liberty? They had a comeback win in Brentwood over Liberty last year, went down 10, scored 31 straight points to win that game. I've got to think Los Gatos is the favorite, but what are you seeing in this one?
I mean, Los Gatos took a tough loss to one of Orange County's top teams, Corona Del Mar from Newport Beach. They were a tough matchup going in. Los Gatos, they lose a great linebacker, Jake Ripp, and now Boise State. They do have a good receiver, good quarterback, and they do have a good team down there. They've only lost once in the regular season in the last 2 seasons. I got to give it to Los Gatos. I think they have the edge, but Liberty makes it interesting with Nate Bell, Deuce Carr, and all the other guys they got. And what Mike Cable did in week 1 was pretty impressive for a debut.
Yes, it is. I love Los Gatos' team, though. I think Los Gatos wins a very close one, though, in this one. That's going to be a fun one to watch. And then how about Windsor traveling out to the Central Valley against, I know they're a smaller school technically, but this is always a powerhouse out there. They played for state titles and won them, playing Escalon.
Escalon is going to be a really interesting matchup. They're 1-1. They beat DeMonte Ranch, a team Acalanes played last season actually, and they lost by 1 point to Buchanan, the tough team from Clovis. We know they have great athletics out there. I think this is going to be tough. Judson Anderson really showed up. Hunter Anderson's older brother. The Anderson brothers really shined. I know they lost Damian Escarcega. They lost Chase Feemeyer, Makai Johnson. But this team is not to be taken lightly. Windsor is not to be taken lightly, even with a new head coach, a new identity. They're going to put up a fight. I'm not honestly sure how this one goes, but I do think Escalon might just have the slight edge.
Yeah, I'm going to go opposite on this one with you. I'm going to go Windsor. I love what they showed. Put a licking on Tamalpais with new quarterback, that Anderson connection brothers. I love what Windsor's got with his coaching staff. This is a program. I know Paul Cronin is no longer the head coach, but I just love the trajectory of Windsor football going forward. I think this is another game where they make that statement loud and clear. We got a few more on the horizon there. We've got 2 WCAL teams playing teams from out in the valley. You've got St. Ignatius against Jesuit and St. Francis against Monterey Trail.
I think who plays Monterey Trail at St. Francis?
Yes, sir. That's St. Francis
Okay.
hosting Monterey Trail.
I was impressed with what St. Francis did last week. Andrew Atkinson really balled out. Matt Doherty Jr., I'm impressed with him. It does look like they're going to throw the ball more. They looked sharp against a team like Central Catholic, a powerhouse out from the Central Valley. I think St. Francis gets the win against Monterey Trail.
I am with you. So I loved what they showed. Matt Doherty being healthy is huge. Kiala Kanena, you had Julian Kamau, you had all these guys in the backfield, like Andrew Atkinson at receiver. I love that secondary. I think St. Francis makes just enough plays. And St. Ignatius, these home night games, their second home night game ever, 2 weeks in a row, hosting Jesuit. I think St. Ignatius makes just enough plays, but Jesuit's a great program as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think what St. Ignatius did to Palo Alto was impressive. Palo Alto was missing a lot of players, a lot of receivers, and if they have a new head coach, it's going to take some time to build up the identity. We know Devontae Adams went there. I think St. Ignatius has the slight edge in this one.
I am with you. I love Mac McAndrews, that quarterback too. He was flawless in that game against Palo Alto. I think he continued this against a tough Jesuit defense. Now, our last game before we wrap this up, 2 really good programs. Vacaville against Cardinal Newman.
Well, Vacaville, I like what they're doing out there in the 707 with all the athletes they got out there. And Cardinal Newman's always been a football powerhouse. They were the runner-up in the D4 playoffs last year. I do have to say Cardinal Newman's just the perennial powerhouse, so I'm gonna go with them. But Vacaville could make things interesting.
I think so too. Brady Mott's really emerged onto the scene. I just like Cardinal Newman. They were young last year. Most of those guys returned. I think a full off season with Richard Sanchez as a head coach proves big there. I think Cardinal Newman wins this game as well. It's going to be a big road win. They beat San Leandro last week, 34-7. I have Cardinal Newman going 2-0. Now, before we wrap this up, Noah, you got anything else you're really looking forward to heading into week 2 in the Bay Area for high school football?
I want to say I think that this week is really, I think this week's going to be a good week. I mean, there's some marquee matchups. It doesn't matter if you start 0-2, but you've got a lot of potential. Even if Bellarmine starts 0-2, they played 2 tough teams, Menalache and Mac, 2 of the best teams in the Bay Area. So I think it's really going to show a lot of who's got it so far and who's kind of still building that identity. But by week 5, I think we're really going to know who's the contender and who's not.
Yes, we will. And one of those teams I think is a sleeper contender, Midi. What they showed against Palma, 29-7, big time win there. Wills Towers, 13 of 18, 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 college commits at receiver. Danny Scudero, 145 yards. Ben Kim, 63. I think Midi is building back up as a program, and this is a team going into week 2 against Mountain View. Also coming off a big win over Kings Academy, running backs, linebackers, quarterback, receivers. Everybody really showed out for Mountain View in that game, so that's another one I'm really looking forward to. But that wraps it up for this edition of the West Coast Preps podcast. Always thank you so much to Noah for coming on. Check out all of our content on Twitter and social media, West Coast Preps _ this week, and all of our stories and content at westcoastpreps.com.